everyone. Welcome to another episode of the QubicaAMF Tech Tip Podcast. This is a weekly podcast where we take you on a journey through the fascinating world of bowling technology and beyond. As always, I'm your host, Orly, and today we have a very special guest, returning guest, Chris Shoup. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Orly. Happy to be aboard, sir.
Yeah, we're happy to have you back. And Chris, first off, do you want to let everyone know your title with QubicaAMF and what you do with the company?
Absolutely, I'd love to. So my name is Chris Shoup, like Orly just mentioned, and I'm the Senior Manager for our Aftermarket products team. And we support anything in the aftermarket world as far as balls, pins, shoes, parts. My team also manages our e-commerce platform, lane care chemicals. So we do quite a bit, just about everything after an install or after a center opens up. We really work hard to support our customers, ensure their success. So super exciting times in the aftermarket world, and I'm happy to come in today and give a few pro tips here.
All right. And today what we wanted to cover was pin replacement. Pins are one of my favorite things. Something about a bowling pin is just, it looks cool. Just the sound of pins when you're in a center. There's a lot of things that when it comes to pins, if people could see behind me, I have a couple pins behind me. There's just something about bowling pins that I like. But today, we want to cover pin replacement. When's the time people need to replace these? The tips of how you need to know when to replace them.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right, Orly. So pins are kind of one of the most relatable things when people think of bowling. Bowling pins are usually sort of synonymous with kind of that key product, right, that most people see in a center. And bowling pins they're just really a really neat product. They're neatly designed. They're manufactured very specifically. So today I wanted to kind of go over a couple indicators, both physical indication of usage and age, some performance things that a center manager or mechanic can keep an eye on as far as pins and their performance, and then obviously some regulatory or safety parameters as well. So wanted to kind of get started with some of the more physical signs. And before I do that, so pins are essentially made of a wooden pin, I should say. A wooden pin is essentially made of typically a hard wood, most typically hard northern maple on the inside of the pin, which is coated with a surlyn outer shell, if you will, similar to what a golf ball is made out of. And together, you sort of get that synonymous sound performance, that enjoyable cracking sound whenever the ball strikes the pins. So a lot of things go into the manufacturing of a pin. It's actually a pretty detailed process out of our pin plant up in New York State. And I've had the privilege to go up and view exactly how a piece of raw lumber turns into a finished certified pin as it goes out to the center. So a couple things from a physical standpoint. Now, like I said, the pin is typically comprised of several pieces of hardwood on the inner core of the pin, which are glued together, pressed together in a manufacturing process. Then those are laved down, whittled down into a general shape of a pin. And then the outer shell, the white shell that most people recognize a bowling pin for, is made of surlyn. Like I said, it's kind of similar to what a golf ball is made out of. That is compression molded to that wooden core, that wooden sort of last shape. So some physical signs of a pin that's nearing its end of life are, any obvious cracks or breaks in that outer surlyn shell. And this is really just a simple visual inspection. It's like anything else. If you think about it, when you hurl a 15-pound object repeatedly at 10 pins or 20 pins, however many pins you have in your pin spotter, these pins are going to take a lot of abuse. Yeah. So it's going to be natural. Pins do have a certain lifespan. Okay, so the first general rule of thumb is to perform a general visual inspection for cracks or breaks in that outer shell. Also, again, since it's a wooden cored pin, sometimes you can actually experience some denting, or some deep scratches in through that surlyn into that wooden core, and that is actually fairly common, especially if you do not appropriately rotate your pins. Just think of how much impact a 1 pin or a 1, 2, 3 pin at the head of the triangle get impacted if those pins aren't rotated. So dents or deformities or deep scratches in the overall shape of the pin are pretty key indicators. Related to that, chipping and flaking, again, of that Surlyn coating. Again, if there's any golfers out here listening today, think about how often a golf ball gets scratched or dented or split, hitting a golf ball with your big driver constantly. It's kind of synonymous to hitting a bowling pin with a bowling ball over and over. So chipping and flaking of that outer shell are really some good physical indicators. Another thing that a bowling pin can experience after sort of a long life in the magic triangle rotation is some fading or discoloration. Again, a bowling pin is traditionally white outside of any novelty scoring or birthday pins. Traditionally has a white Surlyn coating. And naturally, it's going to probably attract a little bit of dirt and a little discoloration over time. So, just like with anything else that's white in nature, picture kind of a fresh pair of white sneakers or white tennis shoes. If you don't maintain the outer cleanliness of that, it's going to fade or discolor a little bit.
Yeah,
so,
and probably you would think too with scratches, those little scratches are going to start to get dirt inside of there, and before you know, you might start to see little lines. Yeah,
exactly. So that's a really good point, Orly. So yeah, think about it. The more scratches you have on that, like you said, it's just a magnet for any dirt or debris to kind of burrow into that pin. So cleaning your pins, rotating your pins, doing the visual inspection. We typically like to recommend an average pin needs to be rotated or at least inspected about every 12,000 frames. And that's equivalent to about a month and a half.
Okay.
So every 30, 45 days, it's really important to do a very thorough visual inspection of your pins. And then, of course, in general, if there's any loose or detached pieces altogether, as far as loose pieces, really the only thing that could come loose from a bowling pin, because it's sort of a contained object within that Surlyn outer coating, is really going to be your base. So the base of a bowling pin is attached into that wooden core and Surlyn and shell. So really, a good visual check around the base ring of a pin. It's pretty obvious if that is becoming loose or defective. So again, really, use your senses, right? Do the pins look off? Do they look damaged? Do they look dirty? Also, use your ears too. So again, wooden pin kind of has that sort of old school feeling of a bowling center, of that loud cracking, that lightning strike that everyone loves when they hit a nice strike on wooden bowling pins. So if you get a pin or pins in a set that just kind of sound dead or don't have that really exciting kind of cracking sound, that's really a good indication that your pins are probably dented or have some sort of integrity flaw on the inner wooden core.
All right.
Next, there's a couple things as far as performance issues. So we kind of went over some physical signs of the pin. Again, using your major senses. That's pretty foundational. Hopefully it should be common sense to most center operators. Again, I would say don't overthink. If you think your pins look or you're kind of playing off, they're probably off. And depending on the time frame, it might be time to consider replacing those pins. From a performance issue, some things that happen if a pin is starting to lose its integrity. Sometimes you'll see an unbalanced or an uneven standing of the pin. So again, these are wooden core pins with a plastic base. Again, sometimes those pins lose their perfect form over time just due to constant impact. So if you see a pin that is either wobbling when it's set or a floating pin, as they say, so it floats off its pin spot a little bit, or it just doesn't look right when it's standing at rest. It's got a little bit of a lean to it. That may also be a really good indicator that your pins need to be addressed or replaced. And then, of course, the pin action, right? In theory, pins should have repeatable pin action in pin fly. if you have, especially kind of an upper tier bowler that has a good consistent hook or league play, you can typically know how those pins are going to fly if you have a nice hook into the 1 and 3 pin or the 1 and 2 pin. If the pins fall unevenly or they're a little inconsistent, or, you kind of always see those YouTube videos of professional bowlers and they're up on a almost a 300 game and they bowl down the lane. They get the same hook they've been doing for the entire game, and there's that one dead pin that is just left standing. Well, it may actually be a pin issue. It might not be how the hook or the rotation of the ball impacted the triangle of pins. It may be because that pin is actually dead. Okay. So again, if the pin is wobbly, if it has difficulty getting set from the pin spotter, or also if the ball reacts off the pins kind of in an odd manner. Again, not to overthink here. If the ball doesn't react to the pin, if the pin either absorbs too much of the ball's energy or just goes flying like a rocket, something may be off with the integrity of either the Surlyn coating or that inner hardwood core. So again, ball pin relationship is something that is very, very vital and important. And again, especially if you have a house that caters to league play, your bowlers will give you quite a bit of feedback. So it's sort of a review by committee, if you will. So the mechanic, the center manager, the bowlers themselves, you're going to realize pretty quickly if a pin or some of your pins are not acting the way they're supposed to act.
It almost seems like there's a science to, someone new to a center that's listening to this might be like, oh my gosh, there's a lot that goes into this. But yeah, I mean, these tips are definitely going to help someone, whether it's the sound, the look. But it does seem, at least there's a lot of different things that go into it. It gives you kind of a easier way to know if those pins need to be changed out.
Mm-hmm. And there's also something I really want to recommend, especially to new investors. Your manufacturer, or in this case, QubicaAMF, we're going to give you a recommended lifespan of the pin. We're going to give you, our warranty standards, and that's based on very deliberate data. So we have been producing pins for many, many decades. So we know under normal conditions how long a pin should last. So I really urge the audience to take advantage of manufacturer's recommended lifespan. And that could be, right, I mean, you could have a pin, maybe a B grade pin or some sort of lower grade pin last 6 months to a year. Other pins I've seen last up to 2 to 5 years. So again, really depending on the rotation, the proactive maintenance versus reactive maintenance, pins can really be a really good investment for your center. Also high usage. Right. So if you have a league center versus kind of a weekend open play center, obviously that weekend bowling center is probably going to have a little bit longer lifespan on their pins than, say, an intense league center with, really good or professional level bowlers that are really ripping the ball down the lane at a high velocity. So again, kind of depending on your center type, may be dependent on how often you replace your pins. And then, kind of in general, just like anything else in a bowling center, a lot of things are comprised of wood or raw materials that do get affected by temperatures or humidity.
Okay.
So again, if you're in a really humid area, so maybe some of the deep southeast of the U.S., humidity is going to impact not only pins, but possibly your lanes, some of your mechanical items. So again, depending on geographically where you're located, especially in the U.S. market, is going to impact the lifespan of your pins. Good thing with pins is they are recognized and certified under the United States Bowling Congress, or USBC. And USBC has very specific standards of a bowling pin. So a bowling pin must be a certain diameter. It must be a certain height. It must have a certain weight range as well. So if you want to kind of get down to the science of it, and you have a really intense mechanic or a really specific Center manager that wants to weigh and measure their pins, right? That's if something is off with those USB-C standards, then obviously that's going to impact the lifespan of your pin. Qubica has a really good product portfolio of USB-C approved products, especially within the pins. If you have any questions, everyone listening, to what pins are USB certified, that can be located on our website or within our e-commerce site, eShop. So again, it's not just us maintaining and recommending standards for pins as the manufacturer of the product, but we're also governed by the U.S. Bowling Congress, amongst other certifying bodies as well. So again, a pin is a very deliberately made product with very specific expectations on performance. So anything that's not in compliance with kind of those basic USB-C standards, it's definitely something that's not going to be worth your investment. So I would say, just know what product you're buying. Obviously, hopefully you would trust in QubicaAMF to give you a consistent bowling pin product that is certified by the governing body. But just, in general, everyone out there, there are pins that are out on the market that are not certified, and you're going to get a really wide variety of performance. So if you're looking at consistency, known and trusted brand and product, Qubica is really the way to go. Again, just want to reinforce to everyone listening, maintenance, we recommend your pins get a thorough inspection about once every 30 to 45 days or about 12,000 frames. And again, I've even seen mechanics do what we call the drop test, which you actually hold a pin in your hand and you drop it down on your floor. And you can tell if that pin has plenty of life in it. It'll actually kind of sound like a ball's hitting it. It'll kind of make that cracking sound. If you drop it on the floor and it kind of sounds dead or is like a dud, it'll be very, very evident. Okay, so it's really easy to inspect a pin, again, using your senses. So these are all some really good foundational tips that we really recommend, especially to any new investors that may not be aware of how often or what to look for in bowling pin maintenance or replacement.
So some great tips when it comes to that, because again, we have a lot of listeners that are new to centers. I mean, you never know. Somebody might be like, "Oh, wow, I got to change the pins." You know what I mean? So this is some great information. Yeah, you just never know. What people are told, or I know I think I've brought this up before. It's a little off subject, but when we first, my brother-in-law had bought a center, and when we first walked into it, the guy that was looking over it with us was like, "Let's see if there's a lane machine left behind, because that's a big investment, And we're kind of like, a what? So, some people just don't know quite what you're getting into right away. So yeah, I mean, this has been a great show. Some great tips to changing out their pins. And what about, I don't know if this is something that's recommended to have a certain amount of pins in stock, kind of like a back stock or anything, or is that?
Yeah, we centers, that's really based on preference. We always recommend, again, depending on the equipment that you have at the back of the lane. So freefall machines, each machine would typically have anywhere from 10 to about 20 pins actually in the machine. So a freefall machine kind of does a little bit of pin rotation for you. Okay. Not necessarily in the triangle, but it's, whenever the pins are kind of cycling through the machine itself, you can actually overload those machines. So it kind of does a little proactive maintenance for you as far as not always placing the same one pin in the one pin spot. The edge string machine, since it's a string-based pin spotter, obviously pin rotation is very critical there. So string machine obviously would only hold 10 pins because they are connected to the machine full-time through the string drop down. So as far as proactive, most of our centers typically have, an extra box or two per machine if free fall. And then edge string, we recommend, kind of having, again, maybe one box extra per machine. Again, like I said earlier in the show, Orly, it really depends on the type of center, the lineage that you have, also your humidity levels. I'm in the sound mind that I would rather have product on hand. So if I have a couple dead pins, or pins that get damaged for whatever reason, or pins that fall under warranty, that I have that proactive product on hand, standby. It's very typical, it's very non-typical to go into a center and not see any spare pins. So I would say, any new investors out there, if you just opened your doors or you just went through a big mod project and you got some new equipment in there and you don't have any backup pins, I really, really recommend getting some pins in hand. We're running some spring dating specials right now through our pin plant. We also have some really exciting promotions going on. So definitely want to recommend, everyone take advantage of that. We also have obviously both a variety of free fall pins for any 8270, 8290s, XLIs, all of our legacy equipment. And then, of course, we do have our drilled string pins for our edge string and string machines. I did want to mention specifically about the edge string. One of the cool innovations for the edge string machine, Orly, is we have created an app that you can activate on your phone called Tech Wizard. Mm-hmm. And Tech Wizard will actually allow that machine to notify you, the user or the mechanic, through that app to identify when it's time to rotate the pin. So it's really cool. So with Tech Wizard and Ed String kind of married together in a center, it'll tell you when and what pin to rotate, which is awesome, right? It kind of takes all the thinking or all the uncertainty out of it. Free fall machines, you got to do a little bit more of that inspection, which is fine because, again, you're going to have more than just 10 pins in the machine rotating around at any given time. Also, in the free fall world, everyone, we do have something called a Durabin upgrade. And Durabin actually is something that will extend your pin life as well. Durabin upgrade can be found on our eShop e-commerce platform, as well as in our customer portal. Durabin is a lot smoother of a pin housing. It allows better distribution of pins, a little bit more of an extended life of pins. So there's a lot of technical stuff to get into, but I really recommend if no one's familiar with the Durabin pin upgrade in your pin spotter, definitely something to check out if you want to extend the life of those pins a little bit more.
All right, Chris. Well, I appreciate you coming on today. I think these tips are going to help a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, you want to have the best stuff in your center and have it be the best quality. So make sure you guys are checking that and following all those tips that Chris gave. And Chris, I appreciate it. We hope to have you back again soon.
I would love that. Thanks, Orly. Thanks, everybody.
If you're new to listening to the show, make sure you're going back and listen to past shows. As I mentioned, Chris has been on the show before. We've had some other great people on the show that are giving some great tips and helping you fix things in your center that might need some help. So until next time, we will talk to everyone soon.